evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's On the Sofa. Very privileged to have Roy Jones on with us tonight, and he will be with us shortly. Just a few things from me. We want to send our condolences to Jake Finley's family and friends. Jake only played for us 4 times, and in 1985 he died aged 70, better known as Aston Villa and Coventry. But we send our best to everybody, all his friends and family. We had a memorabilia sale on Sunday, done very well. In excess of £800 was raised for the charity of the year, which we announced on Tuesday at our end of season dinner, and that's going to be Prospect, as you've probably seen from the video we played previously. We're very proud to say that we're going to support Prospect along with the club, so a joint effort. So a lot of the events we'll do will be between the two of us, with the club and the OSC. So we will make sure that we will make every effort to let everybody know about any events we do. Let's bring Vic on.
Hi, Chris.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, I'm all right, thank you very much indeed. The summer's already started. Watching Somerset beat Essex today is a very great privilege to be there. Tremendous batting from James Rew and from Craig Overton as well. So very pleased. Thank you very much indeed.
Good. One thing I do want to mention, at the memorabilia sale, we met Thelma from Wales. Thelma, can you please contact us? We think you dropped something. I have it in my possession. So if you can contact us, and then we'll arrange to get it back to you.
And she had a fantastic story, didn't she? Which we hopefully will sort of include as another thing throughout the summer. I mean, it's a fabulous story, and we must tell it. So we're looking forward to that.
It's about a medal that Thelma has in her possession, a very, 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 very old medal connected with Swindon. And so we will bring that story to life later in the season. We're not going to be stopping for the close season, I don't think, Vic. We may have a couple of weeks off here and about, but we will. We are trying to do everything we can to do it right through the close season. And let's get Roy on and get started. Good evening, Roy.
Evening, Vic. Chris, evening, Vic. How are you doing?
All right, we're okay. How is South Africa this evening? We should explain that's where you are.
Yes, it's not bad. It's a nice sunny autumn day today, although it's nighttime at the moment. We are an hour ahead of you. We've had a lot of rain during the summer, but at the moment we go into a very nice summery kind of autumn, which is as good as you'll get in UK. So we're all happy at the moment.
Marvellous. Of course, yeah, we've got to get our head around it. You're the opposite way around, aren't you, with us in terms of the seasons?
Yes. We're going into probably 3 months of winter, May, June, July, and then August also. Yeah, but we get some really nice weather. One of the reasons I think I stayed here.
Absolutely.
Don't blame you. Right, yeah. I'm going to leave you to it. Any questions that you have for Roy, please leave in the comments, and we'll get through as many as we can. And I'll see you later.
Thanks very much indeed, Chris. We had loads of comments last week, Roy, when we said that you were coming on. So I'll reread those again because they're well worth getting to. But great pleasure to speak to you. And we'll also get to those fabulous guitars you've got behind you, which which is what you're in the business of now. I'm really looking forward to hearing about that and how you started it. So we'll get into that a little later. Let's talk about your early days then, because born Clacton-on-Sea, I think, in 1942. And actually, today is a very special day, Victory in Europe Day. Do you remember anything about that at all?
Not really. I remember we used to go on parades to the cenotaph down by the beachfront with the school, so there was part of that. But no, I don't really recall very much of that. Although my family were all from London, from North London, and we were evacuated during the war. and I was born. My brother and sister were born in London, and we were evacuated, and I was born at Clacton, and where the family stayed.
Interesting. So you may have been born in London rather than Clacton, but because of the war, that's where you moved.
That's correct. Quite so.
Incredible. Yeah, that's the effect it had on people's lives, isn't it? Moving people around. How did you get into football then? Was it always football for you?
No, it wasn't actually. And I was never a goalkeeper to start with. At school, I fancied myself as a centre forward out of the Nat Lofthouse book, and we used to go kick around on the recreation field. And I think I played a couple of games out for the school, and then our 15-year-old under 15s goalkeeper got injured, and as what we used to do when we used to practice, everybody had to have a turning goal, between the caps or the coats. And a couple of friends of mine said, "Roy, you're pretty good when you go and playing goal, give it a go." So I did that and played one game for the school and moved on from there. I loved it. I found I was pretty good at it, and I joined an senior amateur club at Clacton as a youngster, playing with senior amateurs, and had some success there. So, but there was no thought at the time of becoming a professional footballer. It was something that was pie in the sky, and although I loved football, it was something that I never thought would be in my grasp. My ambition, in fact, was to become a commercial airline pilot.
Oh.
So to that extent, I joined the Royal Air Force. I went to the Royal Air Force number 1 School of Technical Training at RAF Halton when I was 15. And there my flying hopes were dashed because they found I was red-green colorblind.
Wow.
So anyway, I did 3 years the engineering trade under airframes, and I tried out for the college team, and ended up starting virtually being selected for the team when I was 15, 16 years old. So that was my first grounding in football. I managed to get county honours whilst I was a youth, and representative selection for the Technical Training Command. The Royal Air Force then, in those days, had about 4 or 5 commands: Fighter Command, Bomber Command, Training Command. And I was lucky enough to get selected for the Technical Training Command whilst I was still at the college. Interesting enough, the team sheet that in one of my first games, they were all the players were assigned to professional clubs except for me, because at that time there was national service. And believe it or not, the captain of the side, who I met later on, was none other than Ron Atkinson, would you believe?
Wow, unbelievable.
Yeah, so went on tour with Ron as our captain, and as I say, I got county honours and graduated 3 years just before my 18th birthday.
So Cambridge City, didn't Ron Atkinson have a connection with Cambridge? I can't remember if it was City or United, was it? But
he was at United. He was at Oxford United for many years. I mean, he played, I think, 400 odd games for Oxford United. Was a legend for Oxford United when they were in the Southern League, and I met up with him again, believe it or not, before Oxford gained promotion into the Football League. They were playing in the Southern League. So when I was at Cambridge, and I'll go through that story, I actually met up with Ron again. And when he stopped playing, I think he took over manager at Kettering Town,
Yes.
And then Cambridge United. He was there. From Cambridge United, then he went on obviously to Manchester United, I think, or a couple of other clubs. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I met up with him from when he was doing his national service to when we actually played against each other on a couple of games. Yeah, an interesting one.
Yeah, so Cambridge City then, this is where you kind of begin the path into professional football, isn't it? How did that all work?
Well, I was posted after graduation. I was posted to an RF bomber command station just outside Bury St Edmunds, which is half an hour away from Cambridge, just outside Newmarket. And my first pro as an amateur, because I was an amateur footballer, was at Newmarket Town. I can't quite recall how I ended up there. I don't know if I was invited or what happened, but I remember playing one game in the reserves, one game in the first team, and then I got a call from the manager of Cambridge City asking whether I would come and come and try out at Cambridge City. At that time, Cambridge were looking to try to enter into the Football League, and they were signing on a lot of unhappy professional players to build up a team. I mean, there was players from first division, second division, and the thing was, in those days, the wages weren't so high. So the players that come from the recognised Football League teams earned a wage from the football club and were given jobs by various directors of the club, so they could virtually double their income, earning far more than they were getting as a professional player. One of the interesting things about Cambridge City is that in 1959 I was selected to be given a free ticket to go to the FA Cup final, which was between Luton Town and Nottingham Forest. Three players that played in that game, and I've got them, Brendan McNally and George Cummins were playing for Luton, and Tommy Wilson was the centre forward that scored the winning goal. 2 years later, I'm playing with them at Cambridge City, would you believe?
Yeah, but amazing. That's the famous Roy Dwight final, isn't it? Which is the cousin of Elton John, I think. Is that right? Where Roy Dwight broke his leg? Yeah.
You're 100% right.
Yeah.
So Cambridge City I was an amateur there. I played close to 100 games for them over 3 years. And I was loving it. I played as an amateur with all these professionals, and it was a very good grounding for me. They every time I was available to play, because I was also playing representative football for the Royal Air Force and Bomber Command, and my Air Force career seemed to take a back seat at that time. I was all over the place playing soccer. And whilst I was at Cambridge, I got invited to join Spurs by Billy Nicholson. I spent a bit of time there. And then also Alf Ramsey invited me at Ipswich Town.
Wow.
Did a trial there. And I also had a week, I think, at Swindon Town, would you believe, under the managership of Bert Head. Not many people would remember that, but so I was being sought out by a number of clubs, but I'm not sure how it came about. But I or one of the clubs made application for me to purchase my discharge from the Royal Air Force, because I felt I might have a future in professional football, and clubs seemed to be interested. But that was turned down because I had to sign on for 12 years after graduation. So that really stopped. And after 3 years, I was posted to Cyprus. And so my aims or professional career was put on hold for 3 years whilst I was serving the Royal Air Force in Cyprus, also also playing representative for the Royal Air Force there and combined services, and traveling all around the Middle East, which was interesting, but it didn't do my RAF career much good, I'm afraid.
Roy, we're just having a little bit of trouble with your internet at the minute. It's a little bit of a problem with the internet. It's a bit jerky right now, so it should sort of right itself, I'm sure, in a second. But I do seem to remember the fact that you had to buy yourself out of the RAF to join Swindon. I seem to remember that was the case. So when Swindon came calling and asked you to join them, what was the process?
Well, I was in Cyprus, and I think it was just towards the end of my 3-year posting in Cyprus. I received a letter from the Royal Air Force. I think the Labour government had just got in power. I don't recall that, there was a delay. The Labour government got in power, and I got a letter saying if I now wish to purchase my discharge, they would consider it. But I was in Cyprus and had no contacts. I'd been out of soccer, league soccer, English soccer, for 3 years. So I said, well, thank you very much. I'll have to wait till I get back to UK. And by happen chance, I was posted to Brize Norton, which is not far from Swindon. And I decided to look them up. Bert Head had gone on to Crystal Palace, I think.
Yeah.
And Danny Williams was the manager. And I said, look, I was here 3 years ago. Can you give me another shot? So that's what happened. I played a couple of games in the reserves, and then made my debut quite quickly in the first team. I think as an amateur. I think my first couple of 3 games was as an amateur, but the records might dispute that. And then Swindon, after those games that I played, they took a chance on me and signed me full time.
Yeah, I was just looking. You joined Swindon on September the 8th, 1967, and you made your debut on September the 9th, 67, away against Orient, which happened to be a 0-0 draw. So clean sheet in your first game.
Yeah. And I think we played Northampton Town. I think we won 4-0.
Yep. Don Rogers with 2, Don Rogers with 2, Pat Terry and Willie Penman. So in your first 2 games, 2 clean sheets, not bad.
Correct. Yeah. yeah. But So but I think I probably played about a dozen or so games the first year I signed, and then I had a spell where there wasn't much change in the 68, 69 teams. They were really well established, and there wasn't much opportunity at that time. But I probably played, 40, 50 games in the first team while I was there. It was a good experience. A lot of difference to be playing amateur professional, put it that way.
Well, you signed in September 67 and then as a professional on 26th of October 67. So I guess, like you said, you had those first 2 or 3 games as an amateur. So then you're offered pro terms. What was that like? You've achieved what you wanted to be, a professional footballer.
I was wide-eyed. I mean, up until I joined Swindon, I hadn't really done much full-time training. At Cambridge, I never trained with the team, but I was playing probably 2 or 3 games a week, believe it or not. I'd play for the station team, then I'd play for the Royal Air Force, and then the weekends I'd play for Cambridge, or we might play a couple of games a Tuesday night or a Saturday. So I was playing a lot of games, but I'd never been a full-time trainer. Although I was pretty active, so I managed to survive. But full-time training was a bit difficult when I first started. Got to be honest, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of players say that, of course, because as an amateur, you don't have to do the fitness work that they do as a professional. I mean, what sort of training for a goalkeeper was there in those days?
You're going to get me going on a soapbox here. The training was almost exactly the same as the team. Very little goalkeeper specialized training, and we might have a few balls hammered at us. It used to have attack versus defense, so you'd go in goal for that. You might do a bit of corner cross work, but very little physical training attributed to what the goalkeeper needs. In fact, it was always a thing. I got my full coaching certification while I was at Swindon, and part of my efforts was to try and develop goalkeeper training that was suited to goalkeepers, not just running and training with the rest of the team. And I think that's the way it seems to be now. So I'm pleased about that.
Yeah, I mean they have specific warming up before a game and all that kind of thing, don't they? Whereas I'm guessing in those days you just used to run out 10 minutes before kickoff, run around a bit, and then go back in again before you started, didn't you?
No, never used to even run out on the pitch.
Not the goalkeepers, just the team.
No, or none of us. I don't remember any of us warming up on the pitch. No. We used to go and do a stretching exercise in the dressing room, bounce a few balls at each other, and that was it.
It's interesting because we on Saturday, Ron Howell came to the game and I spoke to him on the pitch. He was with the town briefly, 71-72, and I said, how did you warm up? And he said, well, just stretched our groin a bit, did a bit of bending backwards and forwards, and that was it. Out you went. Slightly different. Yeah. I have a very, very vivid memory of my first training sessions at Swindon, where the stand opposite the dressing rooms, running up and down those, I don't know how many times, just running up and down the steps of the stand. And then on a Thursday, we used to almost run until we dropped. That was the big training session. Now, this was a pretty golden era in the history of Swindon Town, wasn't it? You mentioned 68, 69. There's the League Cup, there's promotion. 69, 70, another fantastic year. What was the atmosphere like at the county ground in those days?
Well, it was brilliant. I mean, we got some really good support. I mean, we were getting upwards of 15, 20,000. I remember we played Liverpool, I think, in the League Cup, and I think we got over 20,000 people in the stand. So the support around the club and the team was really good. And it was an unusual time. I mean, I look back on it now, and it's something that I don't think will ever be achieved by any other team of that division. I mean, we went from third to the second. Obviously, won the League Cup. We won the Anglo-Italian Cup. We beat Liverpool in the FA Cup. These were feats that I can't see happening these days. So all credit to the players. And they were very small squads. I mean, the first team squad was probably no more than 15 players. And we didn't have specialized coaches. We had a manager who used to take the training. Sometimes we'd have a trainer that used to run us a little bit, but it didn't have the thought into it that it has now.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the Liverpool game. So Swindon Town 2, Liverpool 0, Don Rogers with both goals. Yeah. Now, this is what we did last week. We ran through the Liverpool team because we brought some memories in. When you couldn't be with us, we did talk about it quite a lot. So this is the Liverpool team that night, right, Roy? So This ain't bad. Clements, Lawler, Lindsay, Smith, Tommy Smith, Lloyd, Emlyn Hughes, Brian Hall, Evans, Stevie Highway, Livermore and Witham. Now, that's not a bad Liverpool team, is it? That's pretty good, isn't it?
Well, I mean, we were, I don't know, we were never in awe, I don't think, of any team that we played against. But when you think about it, I used to, pinch myself. I'm going out and playing against Liverpool. I mean, how cool is this? And I remember, Bill Shankly walks past you, and it's like the second coming, because he's got such an aura about him. And I remember afterwards, he made a comment. He says they only had 2 players. I like to think I was one of them, because they
clean sheet. Yeah. Well, let me read you some of the memories then that we had from people last week, right? This is from Peter Marsh. He says, I was at that Liverpool game. A few short years later, I was at Anfield for a European Cup semi-final with Liverpool soon after being crowned European champions. The Swindon side, including Roy Jones, was that good in beating the future European champions. Simon says, Peter Marsh, yikes, 54 years ago, the Don rounding Clements twice with both goals scored in quick succession, I think. One of the lasting memories was a lad from Avening who came with us screaming David Dangerfield, who's a sub, name all the way home. I think Dave's from Nailsworth, which is kind of close to Avening. Now, John Trollope, and Peter goes on, David came on for the injured John Trollope and was involved in the second goal, if I recall correctly. The goals were similar, overlapping from the left flank, Trivy Road side into the town end, Don racing away with a stampede behind him with absolutely no chance of catching him. I recall now how square at the back Liverpool seemed, but having territorial advantage throughout the first half. Larry Lloyd in the Liverpool defence looked like a giant and was repeatedly heading the ball away over what seemed to be at the least 40 yards. Don took his opportunities with amazing skill and confidence. England goalkeeper to be Ray Clements was completely bamboozled twice. I mean, it's an extraordinary night. I remember I was in the town then that night, and John Trollope, I think, did his hamstring, didn't he, creating one of the goals, if I remember rightly?
Yeah. I don't recall that, but yeah, I remember David. I mean, he was a youngster. I mean, he couldn't have been more than 17 or something.
Yeah.
He was an ex-apprentice. So it was an amazing evening. And to be honest, I don't recall ever really being threatened. You would think playing against Liverpool, you'd be, working your backside off non-stop as a goalkeeper. I don't remember that. I think the team were playing with so much confidence. It was just another game for us. And all credit to the guys that were in the team. It was brilliant.
It was a fabulous night. And this is from Ray. Says, great night. Superb rendition of You'll Never Walk Alone from the town end, which was kind of ironic, isn't it? So if you've got any more memories of Roy, we'd love to hear them. So please send them in and we'd love to talk about them. This is from Sean, who actually was very sort of instrumental in us setting this up. Sean Platt had a conversation with you on Facebook, if you remember. Yes. And this is how we kind of got the connection. Evening, Roy. What was your most memorable match at Swindon? Think I could guess it's between 1 or 2 games. Well, we'll get on to the Anglo-Italian Cup in a minute, which is pretty special. But I guess Liverpool is up there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Liverpool was one of them. In the next round, I think we played Fulham. I think Fulham were a first division team at the time, and we only lost that to an own goal. A deflected shot came off Stan Harland, I think. So we were holding Fulham to a good result at that time. A bit unlucky to lose, I think. I remember that. Also, my debut at Leyton Orient was something special. I remember at the time they had a player called Cliff Holton. I don't know if you remember Cliff, ex-Arsenal player. And they were a pretty good side. So I remember that one. And I'm trying to think others that really come to mind, but I think you've nailed it. The Anglo-Italian was something absolutely ridiculous. I mean, you'll never see that again, I don't think.
Well, if you talk to young Swindon fans nowadays and say, yeah, I was in the town then the day that we beat Juventus 4-0 at home, you just think, hang on, what? And then, this is nonsensical, isn't it? I mean, Swindon Town 4, Juventus 0. You've got to get a grasp of that, haven't you, really?
Yeah, I think we beat Roma as well.
Yes.
4-0 or 4-1 or
Yeah,
something.
4-1 in the Anglo-Italian Cup Winners' Cup. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, amazing times. Absolutely amazing on a small squad. You know, with I would say little technical training as such compared to what they do now. I mean, Don. I mean, the players they had. We had a very good blend of a team, which didn't change that often. And of course, Don was a superstar. I mean, he was quick as anything and had a great shot. He wasn't the best tackler in the world, but you didn't need him. I remember one game I can share with you that we played the 1966 fullback, played for Blackburn. His name escapes me at the moment.
Keith Newton?
No. But I remember we played them, and I think Don tore him apart. And this was in a year after 1966, and he was the England fullback, and Don absolutely killed him. So Don was a great, and I was very pleased to meet Don and John when I came there a couple of years ago as a guest. So that was brilliant to hook up with them again. Yeah.
They regularly attend games. They were there Saturday as well. So good to know that they keep going. Another one. Juventus 0, Swindon Town 1. Peter Noble with a goal. This is in Turin, for goodness sake. This is crazy stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, this was I think we played at the San Siro Stadium. I think the Juventus pitch or ground or stadium was under repair or something, and we played at Inter Milan. So that was at the San Siro Stadium, and it was 1-0. Also, another game that I don't recall of having to work that hard. You just had to be competent. I think it was also in the days where the Italians played the catenaccio style, which means once they lose the ball, they used to all retreat. But we had some very quick attackers, and I think we got onto them very quickly. So yeah, we won that one, and then obviously the next one was Napoli. We beat them 1-0. Also another game that I wouldn't say it was an easy game, but it wasn't a game where I felt I was having to work really hard. So amazing. I mean, we were pinching ourselves, wondering, what's going on here, basically. And we did very little training. I mean, it was one game to the next. Quite amazing. And I think once we'd won the second game, I don't think we actually realised that we'd got into the final, because we were booked to come home, and then the way the point system worked ended up that we had to play Napoli again. So we had to stay on for another week to play Napoli again. And I don't think the players realised what was going on.
Sean reminds me, actually, Manchester City, the only other British side to win at Napoli. Shouldn't have done it twice, which is extraordinary, really. We'll get onto that final in a bit. But I remember talking to Don and John and Joe Butler about this, and they said there was a lot of tennis played whilst you were in Italy, but not very much else.
I think that's about right. Yeah, I can't remember one training session. I remember the tennis. I used to enjoy a bit of tennis, so I remember that. I think we might have been for a few walks on the beach, but yeah, it was. I shouldn't be saying it was a bit of a holiday, because it was, it wasn't. It was serious stuff, but yeah, it was an amazing time. Yeah.
Because they said that all the Italian players were sort of locked away like monks in the mountains, whilst you were. I think one or two bars might have been visited as well, mightn't they?
I think so. Yeah. Well, I think we were sensible. We weren't. There weren't a lot of party goers as such, but I think we just relaxed. It was almost the end of our English season, so It was a bit of a relaxing situation. We had no expectations and no real nerves about playing them. We just went out and played basically, and did our best. And that was the outcome.
Yeah, Sean says, wasn't the future England manager in that Juventus side that got stuffed at the counter ground that day? Well, Capello, I think, played for Roma, didn't he, in the Italian Cup Winners' Cup matches?
I don't remember him much, so he couldn't have done that well.
No. So there's that fight. Yeah, I was going to make the point. All right, it was a relaxing time in Italy, but it was the end of the season. So the players are as fit as they're going to be, aren't they? They played a lot of league games, a lot of cup games, all that kind of stuff. So
pretty much, yeah.
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 So let's go to that final then. Mick Cairns, I think, is the sort of substitute because Peter Downsville was injured. That's the way it was. So take us through that final then.
Okay.
3-0 to Swindon. Peter Noble with 2, Arthur Horsfield with 1, and then the extraordinary scenes. How did you see all that from between the posts?
Let me fill you in with a couple of things you probably won't know, and I haven't shared this before, but I will. I think I'm old enough now to share it. In that we played the 2 games, and obviously we got in the final. And then there was a friendly arranged against some other, I think, second division Italian side. And Fred Ford, who was the manager, played all the guys that hadn't played in the games or weren't expected to play in the final. So Mick, as you said, came from Oxford. Peter was unavailable. Mick came from Oxford, and he played, and I think we won quite easily. Mick was a pretty good goalkeeper, but he was about 6'2", 6'3", and we played. I think the game went quite easy. It was a friendly. We won about 4-1. Fred came up to me a couple of days later, and he says, "Roy," he says, "I'm thinking of playing Mick in the final." And I went, "Oh yeah." He says, "Yeah." I said, he says, he's such a big lad, tall lad. The Italians seem to stay away from him, and he towers over them, and he's thinking of playing Mick. So my response was, Mr. Ford, Fred, I said, if you don't play me in the final, I'll never kick a ball for you again. And it was left at that. The team was selected, and obviously I played. Then we come to the dressing room before the game, and it was a habit or not a habit. It was what used to happen is that somebody associated with the club, the trainer or manager or somebody, used to hand out chewing gum. And I don't know if you've heard this story before. I used to take chewing gum. We didn't have these sticky gloves. I used to take chewing gum, spit on the sugar, rub it in my hands when the ball was dry, so you had sticky hands. So as we're getting like 5 minutes before going out, I said to Fred, I said, "Boss, any chewing gum?" And he turned around and he flew off the handle at me. He swore, "Effing chewing gum." He said, "You come 2,000 miles and all you want is effing chewing gum. What do you this is bloody?" And he stormed out the dressing room. And so our jaw dropped, and we just and Owen Dawson, who was in the squad, said, "Jonesy, you've got to upset him now." And as he said that, he walked back into the change room, and he flew off at me again. He says, "Bloody chewing gum." He said, "I'll upset him if he doesn't stop anything everything at the near post. He's going to be off, and he's going to be on to Mick Cairns." And it took us all aback. We didn't quite know. And Fred was a guy that you didn't cross. He was old school. He was a big guy. You didn't cross him. You didn't say much to him. So we got out, and it was a bit quiet. Anyway, we played, and obviously we won. then I to move on, I got him sometime after, I think, when we got back to UK, and I said, Fred, I said, what was all this about? You know, Mick playing and chewing gum. I said, what is all this nonsense about? Because I wanted to have it out with him. It was just, to me, it was unprofessional. It was wrong. He said, Roy, he says, I just wanted to G you up a bit.
Well, fabulous.
He said, I always find you just a little bit too relaxed. You don't get worked up at all. You don't. He said, I wanted to get you into a situation that you'll go out and say, I'll show that bastard how I can play. And I must admit, to extent that was in my mind, that, you know, but at the time, you know, I was quite taken aback. And it was fine after that. I think he started me off in the following season, at the beginning of the season. But that was two incidences that I had of the way coaches used to deal with their players.
Fabulous. What do you remember about the riot then? Because obviously it was halted after about 78 minutes then. What, did concrete start flying around? What happened?
Well, what happened was we were 3-0 up. The Italian teams were getting frustrated, and we started knocking the ball about a bit. You know, John Smith and their midfields, Roger and a couple of them, they started playing like the English teams play now, knocking it about, keeping possession. And this didn't go down well with the supporters. So the first thing I remember is the linesman running towards me from the bottom part of the pitch, being followed by a lot of let me stop there. Someone got onto the pitch, and the police chased him. A supporter got onto the pitch, and there was a moat going around the playing area, and someone got on the pitch and was tackled by the police and carted off. And I think that started it. And the first thing I remember was the linesman running towards me to get away from these hail of broken bits of concrete and thing. So we realised there was this. They were breaking up the stand, which was made up of concrete slabs. How they started, I don't know, and throwing these rocks and stuff onto the pitch. So we all congregated in the centre circle with all the players, and we stood there saying, "What do we do now? There's a riot going on over there." On the other side, which was the main stand, it was pretty quiet. So the referee at the time, I think in the rules of the tournament, stopped the game and awarded us the match. So, but they wouldn't let us go up into the main stand as you do normally to collect your medals and your cups, as they do in the final. So they brought the cup down to us and handed it to Fred, and they said, "Look, we'll sort out your awards, your medals at the reception later on this evening, but just hang around here." So we just stood around with the cup with Fred. Wondering when we're going to get off. Every time we tried to make a move towards where the dressing room stairs were to get down, there was a fusillade of rocks and stones coming. So I think Fred was the first one to move. He put the cup above his head and made a few explicit comments and walked off, whilst being bombarded with rocks and stones. I think I was the second one. I thought, well, if it's good enough for Fred, it's good enough for me. So I ran off and was just a bit behind him, and we all managed to get off reasonably unscathed. I think a couple of the guys got a few scratches. I got a bit of a scratch on one leg, which I didn't notice under the whole episode. I only noticed when I got into the change room, my leg was bleeding. And we just sat there, wondering what the heck is going on, listening to the damage going on above us, wondering when we're going to get out. So we got changed, and they said, look, don't leave the stadium just yet. Just sit around. And I think we must have sat around for an hour and a half until it was safe, to leave the stadium. So they said we got on our coach to go to the reception after the game, and they told us all to get down below the windows because there could be some rocks and things being thrown at the windows. So as we were leaving the stadium, there was so much traffic about we could hardly move. But all the lads were up at the windows, making some comments that were unprintable, and the crowd were cheering us. Funnily enough,
extraordinary.
Yeah,
extraordinary story. I mean, the point is, it's a movie, isn't it? I mean, if somebody was to make a movie of that 2 years, my goodness, people talk about fairy tales in football, but that 2 years is a fairy tale in football, isn't it? And I'm following on from the League Cup season, of course. It was the highest ever finish in the league for Swindon when they finished 5th and narrowly missed out on promotion to the First Division. An extraordinary time. Extraordinary time.
You can't see it happening these days. But yeah, it was an amazing time. I'm privileged to have play a small part in it. Yeah.
How did the move to South Africa come about then? Because I think you had a short spell on loan at Mansfield. You played your last game for Swindon against Middlesbrough on the 30th of October. By the way, was that Fred Ford's last game? When I was just trying to think when Dave Mackay came in as manager.
My memory doesn't serve me.
No. I was just trying to think because I know we got beat by Middlesbrough at home, and that's when they made the change. They brought Mackay in as manager after that. But how did the move to South Africa come about?
Well, I think when what happened was, I think when I got back after the Anglo-Italian Cup, I started off in the first team, and then I broke a finger in training, and I had a serious bout of hepatitis, which put me in hospital. I was in isolation for a week, and I was in hospital. I lost about 1.5 stone. So and then Dave Mackay come along, and I was trying to get back to full fitness. And although I played a couple of games with him, I can't recall very much happening for me because I was injured and one thing or another. And I think Dave had his own ideas. I think the psychology, the club started changing to a certain degree when Dave came along. I'm not discrediting, but things started happening. There was a bit of undercurrent with him. I think he was wanting to run a few things, and I felt it was probably time for me to move on. I think then Danny had left Sheffield Wednesday and went to Mansfield, and he asked the club if he could take me on loan for the rest of the season at Mansfield, which I did. So I spent, it must have been, I don't know, a couple of months at Mansfield at the end of the season. So I was looking. I think Danny was keen to sign me back on, but the previous year, or one of the years, I'd had an inquiry, or the club had an inquiry from South Africa, who were looking to sign professional players to come and play in the National Football League, which was a pretty good standard. The National Football League were trying to increase their standard to bring, it was mostly white players, but there are a lot of players coming from various clubs to South Africa to play. So I'd received an offer to go, but the club, I think I might have been ill, or the club didn't let me go. And they came back after I left Mansfield to say, am I available to go there to finish off the season at the end of the English season. So I actually went there to join them and see what the situation was like. Played probably a couple of months for Rangers, gave a good showing, and they offered me a contract to come back. So at that time I was 29, 30, and one of the directors had an engineering company related to plate glass industry, and he offered me a job in the engineering side of things that I was reasonably qualified for from the Royal Air Force. So it was part-time professional, and I took a job with them, and I played for Rangers for 5 years, and stayed on. So I emigrated in Christmas '72, and we started off again in '73. To live here full time.
Yeah, I was just looking at actually Joburg Rangers, and two other Swindon players have also appeared for them. Keith East and Paul Fioka apparently played for Joburg Rangers, so there's a bit of a connection there. May '72 they played there, or they were around that time. And also, go on.
Yeah, to bring Keith out here. I can't remember how it came about, but I was sort of instrumental in putting the club in touch with Keith. Paul, I think, was another one. I don't remember how that came about, but I did have some influence in bringing Keith out here. But the National Football League, I mean, we had some really good players. I mean, Johnny Haynes was here, Budgie Byrne, Roy Bailey played here. Probably, I would say 50-60% of the National Football League teams were comprised of players that had reasonably good professional careers overseas.
You had a spell as player manager of Durban City, who I then discovered Danny Blanchflower had also played for them. And then it turns out he was a guest for Swindon Town twice in the reserves against Colchester United, losing 2-0 once and then winning 1-0. Losing 1 and 2-0 and winning 1-0. So there's a connection, a Swindon connection. Danny Blanchflower, which I never knew about, and now I've discovered because of researching you. How about that?
Yeah, I know. I certainly never knew that, but we had a lot of guest players come over. At some stage or the other, they were trying to improve the overall standard of soccer in South Africa. So there was lots of really good players.
Now then, I'm going to ask you about the guitars, right? Because your company, I think, is Loudmouth Guitars. How did your interest in making guitars out of cigar boxes come about? Because if you've gone all dark a moment.
What happened there? Hang on.
Have you turn your camera off?
Something's gone wrong here.
Yeah. You turn your camera off.
There we go.
Yeah. There you go. That's okay. Better. Right. If I remember right, C6 Steve plays a cigar box guitar. Yeah. So how did this come about then? Okay.
Well, I've got to go back a bit because after the end of my soccer career, I actually was instrumental in introducing and developing action cricket in South Africa. But that's another career altogether. But you asked me about cigar box. So once I'd stopped working full time for a living, in my 60s, I took up playing, teaching myself to play a blues harmonica, and I used to practice quite a bit, and I became quite accomplished as a blues harmonica player, which is my main forte. So I was encouraged by a South African, quite a well-known South African country and western star singer who was professional, to go out and play with bands and play with people, blues harmonica. So I did that, and I used to guest for several bands and jam nights playing blues on my harmonica. So I started off like that, and then one of the jam nights, there was a guy came over, was here for a year, who was working on a contract here, and he pitched up at one of the jam nights, and he was a very accomplished guitarist, very much into the blues, who played all his life and jammed all around the world, played with a number of big bands, and he and I paired up to form a small blues band. So at jam nights and various gigs, we used to perform. He was on guitar, and then one night he came along and he had this cigar box guitar. It was a cigar box with a neck on it. The frets were made out of toothpicks. It had 3 strings, and he wired it up to an amplifier, and he blew everybody away. And I thought, this is really fantastic. And we performed with me on harmonica and he on the cigar box. And when he left, I'd moved house and I had a spare garage. So I thought I rather fancy this idea of cigar box music, and I started researching a little bit about the origins of it. It's very very big in America. They have festivals of cigar box music, and in UK it also has quite a big following in UK. And basically it's a box that has a neck, and it generally has a magnetic pickup or a pickup and played through an amplifier. So it's a small electric guitar, and you can make them out of any box, providing you follow the principles of guitar building. You can actually make them into really good instruments. So I decided to get into this. I started making a couple. Then a few people got knowledge of it. Said, "Can you make me one?" I said, "Yeah." "Can you make me one?" "Yeah." So I started getting better and better at it. I got a few commissions from various musicians here to build them so they could add a cigar box to their repertoire. And yeah, so I don't play it. I don't gig so much. I can play it, but I can play it enough to fool people into thinking I can play. But my main forte as a musician is a blues harmonica, and I'm fairly accomplished at that. But I'll show you a couple. I don't know if you can.
Oh wow! Look at that. That's amazing.
So basically, it's a box. This is not a cigar box, but it's a box. It's a box, but I've laminated it with wood and had the printed and the back of it. I make the neck and I fret it, and it's a proper. This is a 4-string, although 2 strings are tuned to the same note to give it a bit of a twang. And this is the one I generally play myself, and I practice on it. But I've also built 6-string boxes. Can you see that?
Lovely, absolutely wonderful. Yeah.
That's a proper guitar, 6-string, but it's a box, and it's got various controls, and you plug it into an amplifier, and very very difficult to tell the difference between that and a proper electric guitar. So I do that. I've kitted out my spare garage with various tools, and I do it as a commercial hobby. I'm not saying it's a big business, but it's a commercial hobby that I've sold. I've probably built about 50 or more, various kinds. And it's a commercial hobby. I'll sell them, and that's what it is. But if you want to hear how they sound, I'll show you. I've got a small amplifier here.
Lovely. That sounds great. Fantastic. It's great to speak to a fellow blues enthusiast, I have to say. We don't do that very often on this particular bit, but I'm very pleased to do so. Who are your favourite blues artists then? Who would you count amongst your favourites?
Oh, yeah. Jesus, so many. All the early blues people. Muddy Waters, of course. My favourite at the moment is a chap called Justin Johnson. He plays a lot of cigar box music and various other music. There's a girl called Samantha Fish.
Yes, she's been touring over here recently. Yeah.
She's very much into cigar box music. Plays there. So a lot of them have had a go at cigar box, playing cigar boxes. There's a number of them, but all the early influences of that produced the Rolling Stones and the Beatles. They were all influenced by the early bluesmen.
Yeah.
Sonny Terry, Brownie McGee on harmonica. Well, Sonny Terry was harmonica. Yeah. Brownie McGee. So all those were the music that I like to listen to. Yeah, I'm not so much into the B.B. King type blues or name escapes me now. The heavy amplified blues. I like the traditional blues. And a good guitar and a bit of harmonica, a bit of fiddle. That's my genre more than anything. Yeah.
One of my great memories was interviewing a chap called Honeyboy Edwards, who was with Robert Johnson the night he died, and I always think that's pretty much quite a tale to tell when you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, Robert Johnson is the go-to man, for the early blues. I mean, everybody I think was influenced by Robert Johnson, and the story is amazing. If you're really keen, if you haven't seen that, there's a couple of videos of Robert Johnson and movies made about his story. If you can track them down on YouTube, I think.
Yeah. Go down to the Crossroads. That's the story, isn't it? Ivor says, great chat tonight. Very interesting to hear about Roy's time in football. I mean, I could talk to you about another 3 hours about the Blues if you want, but we haven't got the time. Roy, it's been an absolute delight. I as I say, I'm old enough to have seen you play, if that's not a backhanded compliment, but I am. And, to hear about your interest in the blues and guitars and harmonica, that's right up my strata, as they say. So thank you. I'm really pleased to have had this chat, and I'm glad we got it rescheduled after last week.
Yeah, one thing I would like to say to any person that's listening that feels they can't play music. I mean, I only started getting into it when I was 60 years old, and if you've got the passion to be able to spend the time and the effort into learning something musically, it's the best thing I've ever done. I've got to be honest. And you can do it. I've been doing it now 20 years, and I wish I'd done it better when I was at school.
Fabulous. Well, what can I say? I mean, I think we'll have you on one night just to talk about the blues, quite frankly. We'll forget the football. We'll just do the blues.
Don't get me started. But if you'd like to find more about Cigar Box, there's a big movement in UK. Do you play guitar at all?
I've got guitars, and it would take a long time to change chords in between. So it would be a long concert. Let's put it like that, Roy.
Yeah. Good thing about a Cigar Box, because you can bar. It's all open tuning, so you can actually play all the chords, but just by barring across one fret. And there's a number of songs you can learn very easily on a 3-string.
Well, you might get me interested now, Chris. How about that then? We've gone through
absolutely fantastic. Yeah,
we've gone through
I
the
love
Orange.
this
We've gone
when we
through
go off the football field.
riots in Napoli. We've gone through guitars. We've gone through blues harmonica. It's fabulous. What can you say?
Well, we aim to please with lots of things, don't we? So it's. But Roy, thank you very much for joining us tonight. And I'm glad, as Vic said, that we managed to get you on so soon after we had it scheduled last week. So
I tell you, it's a great privilege to be remembered and to be doing this 50, 60 years onwards. It's not quite tears in my eye, but it's an amazing thing to participate in. And thank you so much.
You are very, very welcome.
Our absolute pleasure.
Roy, do you have a website for your guitars?
No, I have a Facebook page.
Oh, okay. What I'll do is I'll get that and I'll put it on one of our chats to one of our posts. So if people want to look you up, they can do.
Yeah, I've got a few videos of me performing somewhere in the ether on YouTube. You might find a couple. And Jones Loudmouth Guitars, there's a few demos and other types of guitars that I've made and produced. Yeah,
fantastic.
By all means, yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll share that on our socials. So if anybody wants to look you up, they can do. But thank you very much. And,
I'd love to say this would be great, wouldn't it? Live from South Africa, ladies and gentlemen, Roy Jones and some blues. That'd be great, wouldn't it? We ought to do that one. We have a concert. We just do that. Brilliant. We're done.
Why not? Why not, indeed? Why not? Well, thank you again, Roy. It's been a privilege. Thank you.
Hang on. Roy? What are you saying, Roy? Sorry.
Where do you guys work from or live from? As such.
Well, I'm near Exeter.
Exeter. Okay.
And I'm local in Swindon. So yes.
Before you go, Vic, do you recall a guy called Alan Banks?
Yeah, I do. Oh, the Exeter play, yeah, very good, excellent play. He still goes to watch the City. I mean, I go watch Swindon every week, but he and a group of other players watch Exeter City. Yeah,
he was the Don Rogers of Cambridge City.
Was he?
Ex-Liverpool, fantastic player.
Yeah.
I seem to recall, if you bump into him, he scored in over 20 consecutive league games.
Wow.
For Cambridge City. Yeah.
God.
Fantastic player. Yeah.
Well, next time I see him, because I do see him quite often, I'll mention. I'll pass it on. Yeah.
All right.
And certainly, Roy, if you're ever over in the UK and you're in the locality, please let us know and we'll meet up with you. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Did you say you're in Swindon, Chris?
I'm in Swindon. Yeah, I'm in Swindon.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
We'll do. Thanks.
Brilliant.
Thanks, guys. It's been great pleasure.
Don't go anywhere at the moment, Roy. You stay where you are.
Stay there.
So Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. We will be back hopefully next week. We don't know what we're going to be talking about yet. We've got some few ideas that we're putting together, greatest goals, abandoned matches, and things like that. So if there is anything that you think would make a good hour's chat, please let us know and we will do our best to accommodate it. But for now, have a good week and we'll see you next week. Bye.